Welcome to Building Better Businesses. I'm Kristin Dees, founder of Catalyst Consulting, an agency that helps small businesses and entrepreneurs start, grow, and level up their businesses. This podcast will bring you interviews with experts in all things business related. Have questions for a business attorney? We've got answers. How about your health insurance? Got you covered there too. New episodes coming your way every week. Find us on the podcasting platform of your choice. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. My guest today is Lisa Robbin Young of Ark Entertainment Media. I'm pretty excited to have her on here. We met via Polka Dot Powerhouse, which is where most of my recent guests have been from. I posted in the group and was like, hey, do people want to be podcast guests? And I got a ton of responses. So Lisa's one of those. I'm super excited to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. I love learning things and I love connecting with people. I'm an introvert, but I'm a relator, and I just love learning things about what people do. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm cheating because I get to learn so many things when I'm doing this podcast. I'm like, is this a coaching session? Like, I don't even know. The one I had with Laura Hulleman, which I recorded, I think last week, I was like, this is some live realizations that are happening right now. So anyway, I digress. Tell us a little bit about you as a human being. Who is Lisa?
Lisa is a woman who believes in the possibilities of other people. I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan. Yes, that Flint, Michigan. Please don't ask me about the water. And I came from a blended mixed race family, raised on welfare. And, it was that whole, if it is to be, it is up to me kind of thing. And so at about 10 years old, I was like, I think I want to be a rock star. And so I went to school to study music and business and all of those things. And, now I am a mom to one grown son and one likes to think he's grown son. I'm in my second marriage. I'm 46. I just moved from Mississippi to Nashville. So it's a life of adventure and I love it.
Nice. I love the dotted line stuff. That's really what life's all about, I think, is we have theories of what we think we want to do. And then 10 years later, you're like, what in the hell? This is not what I planned. But it's the adventure. What's the point?
Right. Exactly. The dotted line is where the living happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree. It's one of my favorite things about the whole podcast too, is just listening to people's entrepreneur stories too, like how they got to where they are from thinking they're going to be a rock star. So I share a fun fact about you if you have a spare.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know. A few years ago, I was cast in a reality show that's on Disney Plus. So if you go look for the show Encore, I am in episode 3. It's the one where they bring back all the kids from high school to restage their high school musical. I'm in that show. So.
Oh my God. How fun. So you were one of
the Sound of Music. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How fun. That's a really cool idea. I like that. I'll have to look that up. I'll be like, I know someone famous. No big deal. So what do you do on the work side of things? How do you provide support for business owners and entrepreneurs?
Well, I run a business growth consultancy. It's a business incubator for people who are in early stage startup, but then once they get profitable and sustainable, we take them, it sounds so cliche to say, to the next level, right? But there's a subset of my audience that has the secret desire to be a celebrity in their niche. Like, I want to be the Brene Brown of my industry, right? Like, people have actually said that to me, but they harbor this secret of wanting to be rich and famous in their own way. And so I work with them to help them expand their capacity and to be ready for being stopped on the street and being, hey, are you so-and-so? Oh my gosh, I love your work. Are you Kristin? You're amazing. I listen to your podcast all the time. Like, that actually starts to happen for my clients. And that's the stuff that I really love to do, is to help them navigate wealth and fame in ways that work for who they are.
I love it. That's definitely a not so secret fantasy of mine is to be famous in some way. I'd like to change the world. Really,
right. And most people do, right? Like most of the people that I'm working with are in that niche. They're like, I know that being wealthy, having wealth, and having notoriety is a way for me to make a bigger impact in the world. But, and here's the other side of it, I don't want to be seen as one of those icky rich people, right? Like the evil rich people. I don't want to be building rockets and trying to leave planet Earth. Like that's not my agenda. My agenda is to stay here and really make a bigger impact on lives and touch them in ways that maybe they've just been waiting for me to show up and do that. And make good money in the process, right? Be compensated for the value that I bring to the world and not have to worry anymore. Leave a legacy where my body of work lasts far beyond me, but I've also made enough money that it lasts far beyond me for my future generations as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really, because I can't remember which guest it was. It'll probably pop into my head at some point, but we were talking about that. And I was like, I want to be rich enough to actually change the world. I'm like, I can't imagine being a flobbity jillionaire and not solving world hunger.
Right.
Like, I don't understand how they have like unfathomable amounts of money that could actually change lives. And I'm like, I don't understand. I mean, I'm sure there's other things, right? Like, I don't understand all the governmental impacts and, red tape and all that kind of stuff. But still, I'm like, I feel like if you have enough money, like you can pretty much do whatever you want. Isn't that the whole point? Like, that's what they do. They just do different stuff with it.
Exactly.
They just have condos and yachts instead of feeding kids in poverty that can't get school lunch.
Right.
I'm like,
right. Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
Or wearing a cowboy hat to space. Like, good for you, bud. Yeah. Anyway, we could go off on this whole tangent, but what is your background in between the whole like rock star and now you're helping people be rock stars? How'd you get there? What's your dotted line?
Yeah. So went to school, discovered the internet. So this was like 1994, just to be clear, this is a while ago. I built one of the first ever e-commerce websites and really fell in love with the potential of connecting people on the internet. And so I've spent the last 27-ish years online, building businesses online, helping people build businesses online. Went back to school because I didn't finish when I fell in love with the internet. I actually met a guy, left school, went to Utah for 4 years, then moved back to Michigan. And in the process, got really good at problem solving and helping other people figure out the moving parts and pieces of their business, and how to make money. Like, I can show people where the money's at. Like, I don't know why I have it. I just can do it. Right. And so people started saying, can you help me? Can you work with me? You should write a book. So I wrote a book, and then I started coaching people through that book, and that expanded into other people reaching out to me who were like, I've been told I need to work with you. And I'm like, okay, can you be a little more specific? And ultimately, about 6 or 7 years ago, I was going through a really rough patch in my personal life, and things needed to change. Then at the same time, I had hitched my wagon to a coach who didn't have my best interests at heart. And I gave my power over to them and almost ruined my business completely. I basically had to rebuild it from the ground up. So in the process, it was like, okay, if I'm building this from the ground up, who am I really here to work with? Who am I really here to serve? Because I had worked with so many different kinds of people over the years. And so I grabbed a bunch of sticky notes and started writing down who I worked with and what we did together and what they had originally come to me for. Because sometimes people come to me, and I say this all the time, your goal is not always the goal. You think you're moving in a particular direction, and that goal gets you moving. But then as you step out beyond what you could have seen before, you start to see new realities, new perspectives, new possibilities. And, oh, I thought I wanted this, but that, now that I can see it, is really where I want to go. And so you had to give yourself permission to say that goal is complete, even if you didn't quote unquote achieve it, and refocus on the new goal, right? So a lot of clients would come to me thinking they wanted one thing, like marketing support. And it turned out what they really needed was a whole business model redesign, right? Like, this is not the way for you to be making money. You need to be making it in a different way that really works for how you're wired to work. So I'm sitting with these sticky notes, and I've got 70 or 80 of them around me. And I start sorting them into piles because pattern finding is one of my strengths. And 70 individual pieces becomes like 5 piles becomes eventually 2 piles and a handful of stragglers. And I'm looking at these 2 piles, and one pile is very go with the flow, trust your instincts, what I would call chaotic creatives. And then on the other side, they're very systems oriented, process driven, order is the rule of the day. I call those my linear creatives. And then I had this handful of stragglers in the middle that didn't really fit in either camp. And the more I thought about it, the more I recognized that I didn't really fit in either camp. And it was like, well, maybe it's not 2 camps. Maybe it's a spectrum. And that's where the creative entrepreneur type spectrum was born. And that changed the entire direction of my business and helped me recognize that each one of us comes to the table uniquely wired to do things in a certain way. We have our strengths, and the more we play to and stand in those strengths, whatever they are, and there's lots of different ways to find your strengths. This is my assessment is just one way, right? But the more we stand in and play to our strengths and trust other people to handle the other bits and bobs of our business, our life, our relationships, whatever, the easier it becomes for us to experience right now the success that we're longing for. Because, and this is something else I tell my clients, success is a destination and you are already there. Look around you. If you don't like what you're seeing in front of you, this is what success looks like today. And everything that you've done or failed to do in your life has led you to this moment of success. And if you don't like what you see, you need to make new choices so that tomorrow's success looks differently. But so many people look around them and maybe they've got it really good and they just don't experience, I don't feel successful. Yeah, I got a nice car and a nice house and a nice neighborhood and my kids are taken care of, but I sure don't feel successful. Well, are you working in ways that fight against the way you're naturally wired? Because just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you're meant to be doing it. Sometimes the thing that you're meant to be doing is actually challenging for you right now because you haven't had a lot of time and energy and experience doing it. But once you get into it, wow, you're in flow and it feels really good. And so helping my clients, and that's what I've done over the last 5-6 years, is helping them recognize this is how you're wired. And you don't have to try and be somebody else. You don't have to try and do things any other way than the way that works for you. And the right people are going to show up and support you in that way. And the right clients are going to show up and support you in that way so that you don't need to be working with clients you can't stand.
Mm-hmm. That's great. It's the whole, I mean, we kind of talked about it already, but the whole, like, life is a journey and you learn what you learn, you experience what you experience. It's all basically just a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah.
And we all end up in the same spot regardless, So
yeah.
I mean, at the end of things, we all move on.
That's true.
I don't want to say, morbid things, but,
yeah.
So it's like everything in between is just, you pick choices based on the information you have in front of you and you learn something. And, sometimes you made a choice that was shitty for a while and then you learn some things from that too. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do that again. And like, I don't know, it comes to me a lot because I left corporate life and there's a lot of people who are the same way. And it's like corporate's corporate, whatever. Right. And I learned a lot and I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't had the experience that I had. I wouldn't have the pedigree that I talk about regularly. And I wouldn't have learned what I've learned about leadership and people and how to run businesses if I hadn't also gone through some of those sometimes miserable experiences. Like I've had some really shitty bosses, but I would have no matter where I was, Yeah. Anyway, yeah, no, I'm obsessed with that the whole piece of it is just, make choices, take risks. What's the point? And I also love assessments because I think to your point too, there's different, you get different things from each one of them. Like I like a lot of different ones. And I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to help, which one you need and which one will help you. So I really like the spectrum. I like that concept because I think it's really difficult to box people. And that's one of the things about a lot of the other assessments, I feel like, is it's like, here you are, this thing. DISC is maybe a little bit more flexible in that way, where it's like, here's some percentages, or even Enneagram. It's like, here, you kind of lean this way. It's like the Scorpio sun rising or whatever, it gives you a little bit more flexibility. Right. But I like the idea of like, hey, because it's basically right brain, left brain, and then how we kind of are unique within that. So, because I'm definitely what was the other, like the details, structure and all of that. But I am also very creative and I'm a dreamer and those kinds of things that just happen to be very structured and linear in certain aspects. So
right. And fusion creatives like us, we tend to fall in the middle where like we can do both. We're usually pretty good at a lot of different things. Hard to pick one thing sometimes. You may have heard the term multi-passionate thrown around. It's like that. Although anybody can be multi-passionate, but the distinguishing factor for fusions is we equally love and hate both sides of the spectrum. Like we can be linear and we understand the need for it. And if we stay there too long, our chaotic side's like, woo, we need some unstructured playtime. What are you doing? And if we stay over there too long, our linear side is like, hey, like get out of the clouds. We got to get rooted and get going and like hit some deadlines and make some stuff happen. Whereas if you are a chaotic, you never want to think about schedules and deadlines and like that stuff feels like a prison to you. And if you're a linear, all that go with the flow stuff creates anxiety because you're like, you don't know when anything's going to happen. And that just doesn't set well with you. Right. So as a fusion creative, we flex depending on the situation. Well, this situation calls for me to be like this. So I'm going to be like this. And it's natural for us. It doesn't feel like it's a slog like it would for somebody on the ends of the spectrum. So,
No, that totally makes sense. Cause it really is. It's one of the things that I like about what I do is that like, I get to use the knowledge and experience that I have, the things that I'm good at, the things that, I have background in, and then the new and interesting challenges are, I have no industry preference. I like to learn different industries. I like getting clients that have things. I'm like, oh, I've never even thought about that. Okay. I guess now I'm going to learn commercial construction. Alrighty, let's go. But yeah, it gives me a little bit of both. And I like to call myself a responsible rebel. Because there's a little bit of that. Like I like the structure, I like having general guidelines, and I like to also bend the rules. Sometimes, and get shit done. So that's funny. It's so nice. It's always, I feel like it's comforting too, to be like, oh, I'm not the only one. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. There's people like
there's
me.
More than just one of me in the world. Yes. I have people. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not just a little weirdo. I mean, I am, but there's other little weirdos with me. So, so let's talk a little bit more about owning your dreams without selling your soul, which I believe is a tagline for you. What does this mean for business owners and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so this was born out of conversations that I had with many, many different entrepreneurs who are like, I feel like the things that I really want in the world are so far beyond my reach, beyond my grasp, right? Like I have these dreams and they're out there somewhere. And in order to get them, there was this pervasive belief that they had to sell out, they had to sell their soul, they had to hustle their face off, they had to be on the hamster wheel of hustle and work all the time, or they had to compromise their integrity or something like that. Partly because of what they were seeing, especially in the internet marketing world of, these bro marketers who can do some shady stuff on the interwebs. And, you get caught in the hype and the slick marketing, and then the deliverables aren't there. And so own your dreams without selling your soul was this rally cry of, if you want something, you got to go after it. That doesn't mean, though, that you have to do it in a way that isn't in integrity with who you are, what you believe in, what you stand for. You have to be responsible for nurturing. When you take ownership of something, whether it's a car, a house, children, or your dreams, you have to be responsible for it. You have to nurture it. You have to care for it. You have to nourish it, right? Like that's what ownership is about, like taking care of things. So you can't just leave your dreams out there somewhere. You have to bring them to you and say, these are mine. This is what matters to me. This is who I am. This is what I really want in the world. And here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to commit to doing that. But in making that commitment, you're not obligated to step beyond what your container can hold. You're not obligated to be on the hamster wheel of hustle all day long so that your children forget what your face looks like. You're not obligated to be up at 4 and, stay up until 11. About 40% of the clients that I work with have what I call capacity constraints. So they've got chronic illnesses or disabilities, or they're caring for an aging parent or somebody else with a disability, and they don't have the bandwidth, the spoons to navigate a 9 to 5 or 7 days a week. They just don't. So how do we get more judicious, more disciplined, focused, right? And discerning about, if I want this thing, if this is my dream, then these are the things that I have to commit to that work for me. Instead of doing all the things that all the voices are telling me I need to or should be doing, let's let go of the shoulds and let's say, this is what your container can hold. Execute on these things impeccably to the best of your ability. And the other stuff will come in time, but you've got to give yourself time so that you have the capacity to achieve the goals that are important to you. You can't just leave them out there somewhere. You got to own them, and you can do it without having to sell yourself.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. It's like the, kind of like what you're talking about too, just because you should doesn't mean you can't, or just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
Because that's something where I kind of help. I end up helping a lot of the like dreamers. Probably half my clients have ADHD, if I had to guess. Some of them might not be diagnosed.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for entrepreneurs.
Yep. And that's one thing I have a lot of friends who have been like diagnosed as adults. They're like, oh my God, I thought I was defective this whole time. But yeah, it's some of that, like, there's all these ideas and all these things and like how to like kind of keep it organized in a way. It's like doing the things that will get you where you want to go. And so, like everyone has ideas, and especially like the creatives, as you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to own a fashion boutique. And it's like, I mean, it sounds fun, sure. But is that actually going to get you where you want? Or how about we get you here? And then that will help you do the other thing. Like, it's just, they start like having all, because I was talking to somebody the other day she's got a book of just ideas of things that she wants to do. And she's like, I don't even know.
Yeah. Where do we start? Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just kind of narrowing the focus a little bit and being like, here's the track that you're on. And then there's flexibility too, but exactly. It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but as far as like identifying strengths and weaknesses, it's kind of one of my favorite things to talk about too, is the, like, how does that help you move forward? I mean, just kind of in life and then also business wise.
So one of the things that I love to harp on is this idea of ruthless honesty. And by that, I don't mean mean honesty. I mean, letting go of judgment, letting go of all the adjectives. Oh, that was dumb. That was stupid. Oh my gosh. Like, no, let that stuff go. What actually is happening, or what has actually happened, or where are you actually? My bank account is negative $300. Great. Now we have clarity, right? What got us there may or may not matter. What we do next definitely matters. And what are the choices that you're going to make to turn that around or do something different? What needs to shift, right? When we know our strengths, then we can say, well, based on my strengths, this is the direction I need to head. Because when things get hard, if we're operating from our weaknesses, we shut down, we give up, we get resentful, we put out a lot of bad juju, and things just become doubly hard, doubly difficult. But when we're in our strengths, when we're doing the things that we're wired for, the things that come naturally to us, even when it's hard, it feels like a challenge that's surmountable versus, oh my God, I'm never going to get through this. Why did I even start? Let me just quit now while I'm behind. Our strengths give us the fortitude to be able to continue when things are hard, right? It's like when you watch the weightlifter doing those last couple of reps on his heaviest weight, he's not going to quit because he knows he can do it. He's already done 10. He's just got to do 2 more. And he's going to take as much time as he needs to get it lifted. Okay, 1 more, let that down. Okay, we can do this. We can do this. And they talk themselves through it because they know that's their strength. But you watch the 98-pound weakling walk up to a 375-pound set of barbells. They're like, I ain't even going to try and pick that up. Like, I'm not even going to try, because I would just yank my arms right out of their sockets, right? Because he knows that's his weakness. Like, why even bother? So for us to know, this is what I do well, this is who I am, this is what really matters to me, and to stay there as much as possible, we are better positioned to take on stuff when it gets hard, because it's always going to get hard. Hard is a part of life. It's a guarantee, and it's doubly so in business. You know, people who want to talk about 6 figures in 6 minutes and everything is easy, I'm like, you've not been in business long enough, my friend. because the hard part is coming. So if we set the expectation that things are going to be hard at some point, and maybe several times at several points, then staying in our strengths gives us the courage to go, well, I know my stuff in this area, so let me lean into this so that when it's hard, at least I can fall back on, here's what I know. Here's what I know I'm good at, right? And then that usually is enough for us to carry us through until it's not so hard anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think the honesty and self accountability, like I want to say self-awareness, but I feel like self-accountability is part of it too, is important. That's one of the things that is challenging in a lot of corporate environments too, or just like any kind of large team. If there's not a culture of that, like open, honest, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm bad at. If you're in the type of culture where you have to be super competitive to get promoted, you've got to pretend to be something that you're not in a lot of cases, and everyone has to be good at the same 4 things, then you're not able to really like lean into that kind of stuff. And I think it's
not healthy.
No, not at all. It's extremely toxic. And it's not effective. Like teams are not effective when you have a bunch of people that you think should be the same way or think the same way as you. It's developing teams with individual strengths and being able to identify what each person's contribution is and allow them to be different and allow them to work together.
Well, and the evidence, the research is there, right? The research backs that. When you've got diverse mindsets and you've got a diverse body of people working on a problem, you get different inputs, and then those ideas cross-pollinate to create something that's better than the sum of its parts. And you take a little bit from here and a little bit from here and a little bit from over there, and now you've got something that's totally innovative that really works for what your business is trying to accomplish. But if everybody's in a silo and they're all clones and yes men, you get the same old answers all the time and stuff stops working.
Yep. Yeah. Or it works fine. But it's just fine. It's like, well,
it's all right.
This will be okay. Like we'll survive this. Yeah. And I think being able to openly acknowledge your weaknesses is the other side of that. And that's actually, I think the first step in all of it is, help people figure out their strengths. Cause a lot of people don't really know what their strengths are, like into that, like nitty gritty, how your brain is wired kind of concept. And, that's so huge. Cause like I started with Strengths Finders was my first, like leadership assessment. And when I worked at good old Best Buy, that was like a rite of passage. When you became a supervisor, everyone takes the Strengths Finders and you figure out where your themes are. And then you get your little picture up on the wall with your top 5 talent themes. And mine have evolved a couple of times as I've evolved as a leader and a human, but it was just kind of a common part of the conversation. And so it was like, oh, that's James. He's a harmony. Like, oh, bless his heart. He just wants us to all get along. But it opened up the other side of that conversation too. So I don't remember exactly what you said, ruthless honesty or something along those lines, but being able to be totally honest and accept that you aren't good at some stuff and that's totally fine. And you're really good at some other stuff. And that is 100% okay too, because so many people have a hard time just being like, I am absolutely top notch at these 3 things.
Right. I think Einstein said something about, trying to teach a fish to climb a tree, that doesn't work, but a fish is great in water, exactly. Yeah. So, being in the environment that empowers you, doing the work that you're wired for and aligned for is always going to make you better at what you're doing than trying to be a fish climbing a tree. Mm-hmm. Always.
Yeah. And it's entrepreneur life. I think that's one of the best things. A friend of mine, Chris Angel, he was also a guest on here at some point. He's like, if you ever want to do a personal growth journey, start your own business, because it's like personal growth on steroids. And I was like, yeah, dude, that is the truth. Leadership is one way. And I think entrepreneurship, which is part of that, is like double. So we've kind of talked already too about the like the assessments and everything like that, but how do you kind of help people through the process of the entrepreneur spectrum once they've taken the test? How does that work?
Yeah. So when clients, or anybody, because you don't even need to opt in, you take the quiz and you get this document that says, okay, you're a chaotic cusp, or you're a fusion, or you're a linear, or whatever. And here are your natural strengths. Here's how you're naturally wired and how you see the world. And what does that mean? That means that when this other stuff is going on, that's not in alignment with you, it doesn't mean you get to ignore it, but it means you have complete authority as a business owner to be like, somebody else gets to take care of that for me. I can find somebody else that I trust to handle that so that I don't have to carry those spoons. And so when I'm working with clients, a lot of it is about, is that outside your zone of genius? Is that outside your strength set? If it is, then we need to find another way to get that done that doesn't drain you. And depending on where they're at in business, sometimes it's about finding an automating system that will help them in the short term. Sometimes it's about hiring for that position. Sometimes it's about just outsourcing it completely to, somebody else. And sometimes it's just like, let's just not do that anymore. Like, just cut it out. You don't even need it. Like, it's not even suited to you. So let it go, and that's where some of that business model redesign comes into play. If you're running a coaching business and coaching isn't what you want to do. I had a client who was like, all I really want to do is write books and speak. I'm like, then stop coaching. Like, but I need the money. I'm like, not if you write books and speak. So start putting out feelers to speak so that you can transition away from coaching and have speaking income and residual income from your book sales. Like, that's what you want. Like, go that way. And I think so often we get the blinders on and we're moving in a direction and we turn on that all or nothing thinking. Well, I've got to coach because I need that money. Well, but if you let go of one or two of those clients that you can't stand, yeah, your income's going to take a short-term hit, but you can recoup that with pre-order sales for the book that you're working on. And then you can get the book out and then you can sell the book. Like, you don't have to let go of all your clients, just, also right? Let's look at how do we have both now in ways, again, that work for how you're wired to work. And so that's part of, that's a good portion of what I spend my time doing with my clients. It's just helping them see that there are shades of gray. It's not all or nothing. It's not yes or no. It's not black or white. And the sooner you tune into the nuances, the more choices you have that you can make that actually empower you.
Mm-hmm. I think that's huge. That's usually when I know that something is wrong, when I'm like, it's like, what? Like, I don't feel right. Like, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing as much, or I keep like bumping up against something. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing and I cannot make it happen. Like, I just keep bumping into stuff. Some of it is, I got to keep out for like self-sabotage because I have some of those fun little tendencies too. But yeah, that's usually when I'm like, okay, how do I come back? And then, okay, I'm at a 4-way stop. Which direction do I actually want to go? Like, I don't have to go straight. I can go left. I can go right. I can do whatever. But I get that. That happens to me a lot. And that's part of why I have a coach too, is to be objective, like be able to have someone do like what you just did, where it's like, why would you? So just do this instead. And then you're like, wait, what? Like,
right. Like, oh yeah, I guess I could. And that's the funny thing that I talk about with coaching. I'm like, I don't want to say anybody can be a coach because they can't, but it a lot of times is just reflecting back, I see this. Did you not see this? Because I see it. And then they're like, oh, no, actually, I didn't see that. Thank you for showing that to me. And that's one of the reasons why I think coaches need to be coached, right? Like, we need to have coaches too, because I have a friend who's a coach, used to be a coach, and she would say the sharpest knife can't carve its own handle. Right. So I can do really great work for my clients, but I still need that third party set of eyeballs on my stuff so that I'm not operating in a vacuum or in a silo or in an echo chamber in my head. I've really got another set of eyeballs going, did you see that? Because I see that. Oh, no, I didn't. Thank you for showing me. Now I can get on with life.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we just can't be objective about ourselves. And I think a lot of us that are kind of have those natural tendencies, like the coaching stuff, I know for me anyway, like I get pretty hard on myself when I just can't figure out problems, because I'm like, I'm smart, I'm educated, this is my superpower. And it just drives me absolutely batshit when I can't like just figure it out. And I'm like, it's fine. But I have a lot of really great friends and business buddies and mentors and my coach. And so it's like, I have to go, okay, hold on, you need to talk to someone else and be like, sometimes I literally just need to say it out loud to someone else and then go, oh, okay. And then sometimes I need someone to just be like, are you sure though, buddy? Like, it seems seems like you're making this a little harder than you need to. I'm like, sure, that seems on brand. Okay.
Yep. Overthinking, of course. That's exactly what I do.
Weird. Yeah. Because I am highly strategic, and sometimes that's a bad thing. which is actually one of the things I liked about Strengths Finders too, is that it gives you the balance of like,
Right.
you're strategic and here's how that shows up in an unproductive fashion.
Exactly. Exactly.
Not bad, because I feel like that's not a great way to look
Well,
at life.
disempowering, right? Because,
yeah, exactly.
like, as you look at a chaotic creative, they're all about creating a wow experience. They want their people to feel like, wow, that was the most amazing. And the example that I use quite frequently is Lady Gaga. You go to one of her shows, you see her on the street when she's dressed to be seen, and you're like, wow, right? It's all about the experience. But if you take that too far, that's where you fall into the disempowering energy, because you can become very much a control freak, so focused on the details that nothing ever gets shipped. You know, you really struggle to be consistent with the brand, because if it's not perfect, we don't want to do it. Forget it. It's crap, right? And that's not realistic or healthy. And linears have the same problem on the other side. Detail orientation and order and process is important. But if you over systematize, everybody becomes a number. Everybody becomes a cog in the wheel, and personality is lost. Charisma is lost. People start hating you because all you care about are the numbers or the deadlines or whatever. And that's not healthy either, right? Like, so having that recognition of, you can take anything too far, you know, moderation is great. Too much of a good thing is not good anymore, right? It's not healthy anymore. It's not empowering anymore. And that's, you know, that's one of the things that I like about, you know, assessments in general, StrengthsFinder, mine, and several other ones. It's like, now you can see how the other half lives. Like, this is why linears can't understand chaotics and vice versa. This is why your harmonizer is like, can't we all just get along, people? Because you're too strategic for me. That's too much, you know, like, oh, other people speak other languages. Oh, this is how we learn to relate to one another and become richer, more full living humans.
No, I like that. Yeah, it's really, because it's for me, it's like, it's not about the box. It's about trying to figure out all those little things about yourself and like the personality quirks. And I talk a lot about organization / time management and those kinds of things, which all obviously kind of ties into the strengths and weaknesses conversation, where it's like, you just got to figure out ways to outsmart yourself. It's like, how does your brain normally work? Like, what do you like? What's your normal? Are you a digital person? Are you a paper person? How do you figure out how to make that work for you? Like, how do you trick yourself into time blocking or whatever? Like, if that doesn't work, what might work instead?
Right.
So yeah, but that, I mean, that's all part of that conversation too, because you can't really begin to identify that stuff until you know how your brain actually works. And it's like, exactly. Oh, I like lists. I love lists. I love crossing stuff off. So I will always have paper to-do lists, because it does not do it for me. I don't get the little dopamine boost or whatever, serotonin, whichever one it is.
Dopamine. Yeah.
Yeah. If I like check a box electronically, it does nothing. In fact, it makes me more stressed out usually, because I feel like I haven't been able to cross it off. So I'm just like, this is unpleasant. And I will always have a notebook with me. So, that's just how my brain works. You know, it's like, sometimes I can do a digital calendar now. I don't love it, but I had to adapt. I'm like, okay, but my to-do list is paper. Anyway, so, but I also had to find ways to make that more organized, and like, so I don't just have like 26 million Post-its of things I need to get done. There's still organization and structure inside of it, but yeah, humans are interesting. So on that note, what are some things you recommend for entrepreneurs to do to set up their environment for success based on their internal wiring?
Right. So the first thing that I would tell anybody to do, and this was a hard one lesson for me, is really listen to yourself, right? Like, the first thing you need to do is find a space, a corner. I don't care if it's the bathroom or under your bed. Get 5 minutes alone with the thoughts in your head and the feelings and sensations in your body, and be like, what is going on with this container that I'm in? And find out what your body wants, what it needs, right? And that's going to be different for everybody. But you're going to get a list of things. You know, oh, I need a nap. I'd like a donut. I want to take a walk. I want to just sit and veg. I want to buy some flowers. I want to paint my office. Whatever. You're going to get a laundry list of things. Cool. Brain. Now, What's one thing I can act on now? What's one thing I can do right now with what I have, where I'm at right now? And listen for that answer. Because instead of, oh gosh, I've got to have an office with all these things and blah, 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 that gets really overwhelming. But if you focus on one thing and you execute on that one thing in your environment, well, it'd be really nice to have a green plant so that I can have some fresh oxygen in the room. Cool. Let's go get a plant and let's get that put in here. We'll worry about everything else afterwards. But that one piece, because then that one piece can become your altar, your sacred space, your focal point that reminds you, my body asked for something and I honored that request and I'm taking care of me and I can trust myself. And 95% of the time, the clients that I'm working with have some level of self-esteem, not enough, self-trust issue where they're like, I just don't know, man. I mean, who am I? And I'm like, you're the person who just said, I want a plant and went and got a plant and you got stuff done. Right. And that builds on itself. Right. And if you're really good at this, then yeah, sure. Let's talk about taking time to meditate or having quiet time away from people every day, or taking walks to fill your body and nourish yourself. All that stuff is great, but you got to start somewhere and start with that one piece that allows you to build self-trust and honor that one request. And if you do that every day for a month, what do I want right now today? What do I need right now today? And sometimes you're not going to be able to have the thing you want right now. And you're going to have to negotiate with your body and be like, I know that you want ice cream right now. And right now the ice cream store is closed because it's 3:00 in the morning. So what can we do now? And then we'll go get ice cream later. Right. Sometimes that little kid in us wants what it wants. And we have to say, okay, let's negotiate as the adult in us, right? Like our adult and our child. And our environment of empowerment comes from what comforts our child. Right. So for me, that's coloring books and paper dolls and modeling clay and my mystery machine and my pop culture icons that I have around my office. That stuff gives me comfort and lets me feel like this is who I am and this is what matters to me. But it all starts with one piece. Start with one piece, build that self-trust and let it go from there.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great because it really, the inner child stuff is like something that I recently, like probably in the last like 6 months to a year, started learning more about as far as myself. I'm like, I'm pretty self-aware and I know what all my trauma is, blah, blah, blah. I did not. No, I did not, Lisa.
Welcome.
Yes, I was like, oh, hello. Oh, you mean all of this stuff shaped my personality? I'm not just like some magical unicorn now. It's trauma.
Well, you are a magical unicorn.
I am, but it
comes from somewhere.
It comes from trauma. Yeah, I was like, cool. But no, it's huge because that stuff really is. It's like I was talking to Laura Holloman. Have you talked to her, by the way? I feel like
she and I are friends. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because the endotype formula is what we were talking about last week, and I was talking about asking for validation or something like that. And I was doing this little, like, I was like, oh my God, like, will you just like, please like my stuff? And she's like, that's because that's your inner child there really wants that validation. I was like, oh shit, dude, what? I'm like,
out on it. Oh,
get out of here. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, that's like when I really want something is I ask it in that fashion because I know that also I'm more likely to get something that way. Cause I'm like, hey, like, I know it's really stupid, but like, can you like my Facebook page for me? That kind of stuff. And I was like, oh man, cool. Another thing.
New layers, new levels.
Yeah. But it's so interesting too. And I think that's a big piece of just us as humans is kind of unlocking all those little like childhood things and triggers. And like you said, somebody really wants a plant or you have all of the fun stuff, fun characters and all that kind of thing. It's fine. Like you're allowed to have that stuff. But we get it kind of beaten out of us over the course of time. People make fun of us for the things that we love and things that are nerdy and dorky. And so you like secretly love Harry Potter or Doctor Who or whatever. And it's just.
Yeah. And it's the things that we love and the ways that we're different that people care about most when they're looking to connect with us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like those are when someone else is a nerd about whatever you're a nerd about, like, oh my God, you're just like, yes, we can talk for like 100 days.
You speak my language.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
No one else understands this. It's the whole, like I was saying, like when you find out, someone else is like you or what your thing is. And it's just so nice and validating to be like, there's other people like me out here. Like I'm not the only one.
Indeed.
Anyway, sorry. We could probably talk for many days. I had the same with Laura. I was like, oh my God, we could go forever. Down all the rabbit trails. So how does someone know that they're working with a coach? You actually kind of alluded to a crappy experience that you had. Well, super crappy experience, like ultra crappy. Yeah. But there's so many people you can just say you're a coach. And if you're not, like, well, you have enough experience. Like you have it's the whole, like, how did I end up in this relationship that's so crappy, like toxic and unhealthy?
Right.
So what are some things that you recommend, like people look for outside of just like, let's make a connection with someone that jives with me?
Well, I think one of the big things, because I've known people who have lots of experience and no credentials. I mean, like they don't have a certification or whatever. And I've known people who have lots of credentials and, no practical experience. And I've seen really effective coaches on both ends of those spectrums and really ineffective coaches on both ends of those spectrums, right? I've seen people who are brand new, who are amazing, and people who've been in it a long time who are crap, right? The first thing I always say when you're looking for a coach is know what you want going into the coaching relationship. It's really easy, especially in this day and age, to get wooed by slick marketing, flashy imagery, cool videos and websites and beautiful hair and pretty bodies and all of that star factor stuff that takes away from, but what is it that I really need? What kind of support do I really need? And if you're not clear on that, no coach can really help you. Because what'll happen is you will meander through the coaching relationship and maybe never get anything done. And so if you're coming into a coaching relationship like, I know I need a coach, and that coach can't help guide you to what is it that you're trying to work on? What is the result you're trying to get? What is the direction you're trying to head into? If between the two of you, you can't come up with that, you're not ready for a coach. But if you are ready for a coach, then what you want to look for are things like, do they have experience showing up and holding space for you in the way you need space to be held? Some people want very directive coaching. Just tell me what to do, which is really more consultative than coaching. And your coach needs to be able to hold a line and say, well, you're the one who ultimately makes these decisions, not me. My job as a coach is to hold up a mirror and show you, this is what I see, and ask you questions to help you think about things differently. If you want something other than that, you don't want a coach. But there are a lot of people who throw up a shingle saying, I'm a coach, who are really consulting. They're like, well, here's what you should do. Get some Facebook ads going, and I will coach you through that. Like, that's not coaching. That's hand-holding, right? That's teaching. That's training. And all of that stuff can be very important, but it's not coaching. It's very directed. It's consulting. And so it's really easy to get confused around those things. So when you're looking for a coach, that person doesn't necessarily have to have the experience of achieving the goal that you want to achieve, I don't think. Because a good coach isn't a consultant. They don't have to have a deep knowledge. And like you said, I get to learn about, the construction industry or whatever. We learn with our clients, but what we do as coaches is we show up and we hold a strong, safe container for them to unpack and explore and experience and inquire, ask questions of themselves to find their answers, and then have the confidence to stand in whatever decisions that they're making. And if you found a coach that can do that, doesn't matter what industry you're in, because it's not about, well, how do I make six figures doing this? No, it's about what needs to shift so that you can make six figures. And go explore that stuff inside yourself. Go explore that stuff inside your business. Now, when you get to the point that you're clear, well, the problem is I need more leads for my business. Okay, now maybe you probably need a consultant to help you figure out lead generation. And a lot of coaches also have consulting expertise. I do, because I work in the field of business and I work with a lot of solo and micro entrepreneurs. Now, if a corporate head came to me and was like, we've got problems in our business, we need you to fix this, we've got 100,000 employees, I'd be like, that is not in my wheelhouse. not for consultation. If you want some executive coaching, I'm down, but like fixing that business, that is not my wheelhouse. Let you talk to so-and-so, right? Let me refer you to somebody who does consult on things like that. And so the coach also has to know their guardrails, right? I'm not a therapist. I don't offer legal advice. I was a financial advisor, but I don't give financial advice, right? Like these are the things I do not do. And if you start asking questions about that, we're out of scope. And a good coach will put those boundaries down. A bad coach will be like, let me see if I can help you figure that out. And, try to be all things to all people. And if you're getting that vibe, trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, trust your gut to say no and go look for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's such a good breakdown. Because I'm with you. I don't think you have to be certified to have the skills and abilities. Everything I know, I learned through the School of Hard Knocks and leadership. I don't have a college degree. I just started managing people at the age of 19 and then, learn things. Cause I already had like the natural instinct is there. I think people who have that skill and ability, it's just something that's, sorry, Siri started talking to me. Anyway, but yeah, it's super important. I think there's a lot of people who also say that they're experts and, are not. And that's really the thing that's like, I don't think, like you said, you have to be a 7-figure earner to teach people how to get there. But if you don't know anything about business, you really have no business teaching people or saying that you're a business coach, at all. And that's where it gets kind of scary.
Yeah.
Cause and the definition too, I think like you said, coach and consultant, cause I'm a consultant because I direct people usually. Like there is a ton of coaching involved and some of those, self-realizations and guided brainstorming and those kinds of things to help people get to the places. But I am very directive and I'm not as good at the, leaving it open necessarily, but that's why I call myself a consultant. Cause I'm like,
exactly.
I'll tell you what to do in most cases. And in some cases I'll be like, hey, well, what do you think? Like, what's your decision? When it comes to actual decisions, like financial decisions, I'm pretty careful about that piece of it. Cause I'm like, I'm not going to be the one that like you blame your business tanking on me, or, like that kind of stuff. I'm like, well, here's what I think. Here's the research that I found based on my experience. This is some options for you and then go from there. But anyway, no, I think that's huge. It can be so damaging. And like you said, sometimes you don't know until it's too late and you're like, oh, cool. Like I've now run my business into the ground. Trust your instincts. And when you're like, this feels weird and it doesn't seem like it's working also, stop immediately.
Yeah. And I would say if you're not at a point where you can advocate for yourself, get a therapist first.
Oh yeah.
And then go find a coach because a therapist is going to help you learn how to advocate for yourself and honor your boundaries. And that's not something that I think you should entrust to your coach if it's a new relationship, right? If this is the first thing you've done, I've never had a coach before, and I just need somebody to, no, you need, because a good coach is going to push back, right? A good coach is going to go, are you sure about that? And if you don't have the intestinal fortitude to stand firm when you want to stand firm, you're going to get walked on, which is what happened to me in that really bad experience. I just gave up authority. I'm like, well, you're smart and you know more than me because you've been doing this longer. So I'm just going to trust you. And everything fell apart because I didn't trust myself. I didn't listen to myself. I didn't honor what was coming up for me when I was like, that doesn't feel right. I just kept deferring to this coach. And so I got a therapist who, helped me, get some courage and be like, okay, this is who I am. This is what really matters to me. This is what I want. And I hear you saying this, but that goes against every bone in my body. It doesn't feel like it's in integrity. Is there something else we can do? And when I could show up confidently and have that conversation, then the right coach for me showed up. And now she can push back and I can push. And we can have this conversation, this dialogue between us that really helps me go deeper in the stuff I need to learn, but also helps me show up more confidently in the world with the people that I'm trying to talk to, the people that I'm trying to reach, and the people that I'm trying to serve.
That's such an important piece too. I don't think anyone's really talked about that part of it too, the therapy aspect of it. Because I know for me, that's been a huge thing, like a growth thing, particularly over the last like 4 years, maybe, is trusting my instincts, trusting my gut. And, knowing the difference between impulse and instinct also is another thing. But that's been such a big deal where it's like, oh, like you said, you gave up your power and authority to someone that had no business doing that. Or should have known better and not allow that to happen. Because some people are, if you're good at what you do, if you're a good coach, you should be able to recognize that when someone doesn't trust themselves. And like you said, you help a lot of people with self-worth and value issues. And there's an element of care and handling that goes behind that. Just like having a friend or family member who is that way, you try to hold space and say, are you sure? Are you, and it's different than are you sure? Like, is that actually really, does that make sense? It's different than like, I just want to make sure that is what you want and that you are 100% comfortable with that. I just want to check in and make sure that you are protecting yourself. So it's like go to therapy. We all need therapy.
Word. That is so true.
Sure. Yeah. Anywho, so as an entrepreneur and business owner yourself, what advice would you give fellow business owners about running their businesses specifically?
So 2 pieces of advice. One of them is not mine. It's a quote from Judy Garland, and she says, it's better to be a first-rate version of yourself than a second-rate version of somebody else. And that ties into my piece of advice, which we've already hit on a little bit, and that's trust yourself. Because even if you make a mistake, even if you end up being quote unquote wrong by showing up and being yourself in a place where things didn't work out the way you wanted them to, it's rarely ever a true failure. It's rarely ever going to be life or death. And most of the time, if it's going to be life or death, you're going to get other warning signs that are like, don't go there, right? So again, trust yourself, right? Honor what's going on in your body, those sensations. My coach likes to say your body is like a smoke detector, right? And so you're getting bells and red flags and warnings. And if you're actually paying attention and trusting what's coming up for you, even if you're very, very linear, right? The chaotics, they already know this. They're already like, woo, metaphysical, I got all the woo-woo on my side. But even if you're very linear, you're going to get that twinge. You're going to feel that sensation. You're going to have that inkling that something is off. Listen to it. Trust yourself. Honor what's coming up for you. And build that muscle, because the better you get at that, the better you become as a business owner. Hands down.
That's great. Yeah. Someone else told me once, make decisions quickly. And that's kind of part of that too, is like training yourself to recognize your instincts and be like, oh, this is a thing. I should pay attention to this. But yeah, no, that's great. I love it. What resources do you wish you had known about at the beginning of your entrepreneur journey?
Wow. Okay. So as a person of color, this message really goes out to other people who are in marginalized communities. Find the resources, the grants, the scholarships, the loans even. Find the resources that are out there just for people like you and tap into them like crazy. Apply for everything, ask questions, because what happens is these synchronicities that you didn't know were going to happen. I applied for a grant that was being put out by a subsidiary of Frito-Lay, and I didn't get the grant. But what ended up happening was they created a website for all of the people who had applied to give them a spotlight feature. And so then I ended up having this link back to my website from Frito-Lay. I mean, that is great website traffic right there. That is great. And those opportunities are out there if you start actively looking for them. And I mean, this is not just for people of color and marginalized people groups. There are all kinds of grants and loans and funding and resources and tools available for entrepreneurs that don't cost you anything, but you have to go looking for them because they don't just show up on your doorstep. And so my piece of advice is, for every hour you spend doing marketing, spend 15 minutes doing research for resources, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what kind of conversation you're going to have or where that might lead. And you never know what kind of free money is just going to fall in your lap because you took the time to apply when nobody else did. So especially if you're in the early startup phases of your business, take the time to do the research to find out what resources are available to you just because you are who you are. Because not everybody can qualify for those things. So go get them. They're there for you.
I love it. Go out there and ask questions. Yeah, like you said, that's my favorite thing. You find the people you need to find when you need to find them, and you find the answers you need when you need them. You got to go out there and talk to people for sure. So tell us how we can best support you. What are you working on? What can we help spread the word for you about? And how do people find you?
Oh, so my website, lisarobinyoung.com, is undergoing a little bit of a shakeup right now because we're relaunching our business incubator. So for people who are in the early phase startup of business, now they may have been at it for a long time, but they don't have profitability and sustainability yet, right? Like they're either hustling or they're not making the money or both. Then the incubator is a great opportunity to get support that you need in your business and grow at a pace that works for how you're wired to work. The best part about it is it's a pay for results program. So we're not making money if you're not making money. I mean, that's pretty much, how that works. And it's pretty innovative in terms of how it serves people. There's nothing else like it anywhere. And I've been doing it now for 7 years. So that is happening in the next couple of weeks. And so we would love to have people come take the quiz, explore the site, learn about it, and see if it's something that's going to help them grow. For people who are established entrepreneurs, my new book is due out soon. It's called Star Power. It's all about building that legacy business. What has to happen so that you can be the celebrity in your niche and leave a body of work that lasts for future generations and make that money that allows you to have a lasting impact on future generations financially as well. And so you can learn all about that stuff at my website.
Excellent. Well, I am very glad that you joined me. Thanks for hanging out with me. It was a great conversation. Yeah, I love all the, I mean, I talk about assessments and psychology and therapy right? For like
brains. Yeah. I love it.
Yep.
We're just zombies talking about brains.
Yep. Pretty much. Very cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too, Kristin.